Hello, I am Therese, your undead girl next door, and I talk about horror movies here on Late Night Movies. So if you want to see more of that, please subscribe to our channel. Today we're going to be discussing the much awaited and fairly newly released Edgar Wright film, Last Night in Soho. Now I was really excited for this film because this is Edgar Wright's first serious horror film, in that like it's not mixed with a horror comedy like Shaun of the Dead. I read a critic saying it was a comedy horror. I don't think anyone else has like labelled it that. As far as I was aware, it's always a psychological horror. Now I just want to preface this video by saying that although I love the film, I do have some thoughts. So like Khadija and Bo says, you can like or even love something and still critique it. If I didn't love this film, I wouldn't have pried this poster from the sweaty palms of the teenager at my cinema. So my favourite thing about this film from the offset was the characters. Like, I bought both of them. I bought Sandy and Eloise, especially Eloise. Like, I believed that she was this kind of happy-go-lucky girl that wanted to make it in the big city. And most importantly, I bought straight away that she was a medium. I was like, she can see ghosts. Great, yeah, I believe it. And that shouldn't be such an easy sell, but I don't know if it was helped by Thomasin McKenzie's believable acting, but I just really believed this character. I also liked that she didn't have to like be introduced to her ghost powers, like it was something in her past. And that made a character who could have been kind of green and gullible come across as somebody with an actual past. Especially as this is Wright's first film with a female lead, I think it was really good that there was a female co-writer to the script. Anya Taylor-Joy, obviously a delight. There was such a theatricality to her. Her movements were incredible, and that was really helped by the amazing choreography. When you saw her, you couldn't take your eyes off of her, and it made you want to learn more about her. Matt Smith was a bastard, which we love to see. I was less shocked by this because I'd watched him play like a Cockney guy in his house, so I wasn't like, whoa, what happened to Doctor Who? But I really appreciate it, and I think that was good casting. Like, well done to him for shaking his like lovable character thing. It was funny, I went to the cinema to see this film, and so I was sat in the cinema, I was waiting. It was going to start at like 8:30 or something, and I was kind of sat there, you know, with my blood and my snacks and everything, and like there was no one else in the theatre really. There was like 5 people, and we waited, and like 15 minutes went by, then 20 minutes went by, then half an hour went by in the film, all the adverts just hadn't started. So I like was like, should I go and like talk to them and see if there's a problem? And I went and I was like to this like 19-year-old who worked there, I was like, hey, like the film hasn't started. And he was like, when was it supposed to start? And I was like, half an hour ago. And he's like, you waited this whole time? Why didn't you tell me? I was like, I didn't know if you were just running late. I didn't want to bother him. Didn't want to bother anyone. He came and was like, it'll start in a couple of minutes. We're just going to skip the adverts to get you up to speed. And I was like, oh, okay. So the film started and there was no sound. And you just hear him come in. And he just goes on his walkie-talkie. He's like, hey, Jack, there's no sound. And Jack's like, I don't know what to do. So like we watched the first 30 seconds without music. But the point I'm getting at in a very long-winded way is that once A World Without Love, the opening song, did play, you really saw the impact that the music had in this film. And Edgar Wright has always really managed to get it just right with the music. One critic said his films, some of them, like Baby Driver, are bordering on musicals. You could really tell that Edgar Wright had a huge love for that era of music. Like, he used to listen to his parents' old 60s records like Ellie did with her nan. So a little fact, I'm a huge fan of costume design. I think that it doesn't get taught to you how important it is nearly as much in film schools. I just think it like makes or breaks how you see a character, personally. So saying that, the costume design of this film, especially seeing as it was set in a fashion college, had to be good, and it was. Like, considering it had to do contemporary, period, blend the two together, and then at the very end make something completely new, like, it was amazing. Whenever you saw Sandy in her outfits, you were absolutely mesmerised. The way they move around, especially her first dress that inspires Ellie, especially that scene when she's dancing in the club and she's like flipping between all of the outfits. You really get the sense for her kind of character, the fashion forward young woman she is, and the kind of big dreamer she is, or was. And it's not just the costume design, like the whole film is beautiful. The framing, the gorgeous sets with all of this detail in, how the production design manages to make a grimy student Halloween night look just as incredible as this huge ballroom. Like, it's just gorgeous. It really does do Soho, the area, justice, and this whole film is meant to be an ode to Soho. The lighting is gorgeous, like you can see that from my stolen poster, how they like light their faces in these dramatic lighting with bright colours. It reminds me of Suspiria, and I know for a fact Edgar Wright is a Suspiria fan because I attended a talk by him once and he mentioned it. So we know he likes Suspiria. We know that this is meant to be a giallo-esque film. Okay, so now we get into my critiques. I would say one of the big problems I've read over and over again, that I kind of felt in the film but wasn't really like at the front of my mind, that people had with it, is John's character. Like, they thought he was a boring character, and yeah, I see it. Like, he's not much beyond this good guy who puts up with a lot of Ellie's shit. But on the other hand of that, there is a thing where you don't write side characters to be hugely complex if you've got some very complex main characters going on. And you do, you have these two main characters that you're trying to focus on and learn about. And so maybe if they made John too complex, it would have taken away from that, maybe. But still, I feel like John could have had more to him. Like, he wasn't even a manic pixie dream boy. He was like less than that. He was so bland. And like, we don't know anything he did. We don't know what he studied at fashion college. We don't know what he was working on that whole time in the big room while Ellie was working on stuff. We know nothing about him. Nothing about his interests, except for he comes from North London. But my main problem with the film, and I was wondering, I was like, I liked it, but what is my issue with it? There's some sort of issue. And it's the fact that Ellie and Sandy's journeys feel like they were cut halfway through and then fast forwarded to the end. Like, I wanted to see more. I wanted to see Sandy exploring more of the positive aspects of 60s London, so that when her dreams are crushed, it's more heartbreaking. You know, this dream is ripped away from her. She's had a taste of the limelight and it's ripped away. And Ellie, I wanted to see her going mad with inspiration, designing dozens of Sandy's outfits as she has this like inexplicable insight into the era. I didn't want to see her just make one dress. It felt incomplete. Critic Robert Daniels said that the second half of the film falls flat, and I think it's due to this middle segment kind of feeling like it's missing. My second big problem is I love the horror aspect on the whole. I thought it was a really good, serious horror film for Edgar Wright to make, and I really liked the faceless men, especially when we see them revealed for their characters at the very end of the film. But it kind of reached diminishing returns in the scene after scene. They were around every corner. We kept seeing them. Ellie kept getting jump scared by them. It was just constant, constant, constant. And it got old. And it was an idea that should have stayed scary and should have been used sparsely. But because it wasn't, by the end I was like, okay, they're not so scary anymore. And last of all, and this is totally personal, I feel like Edgar Wright's films, their dialogue, discounting the Pegg and Frost influenced films, his dialogue suits films that are very stylized, like Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim, and when they're supposed to be in this more realistic realm, the dialogue comes off as a bit unnatural and awkward. Like, I get Jocasta was supposed to be a bitch, but Regina George had more subtlety. So my final thoughts. I really did like this film, and I love the characters, and I wanted to be taken on their journey, and I followed that journey. I just wanted to see more of it. I think it was a great psychological horror with a very unique idea, and I'm impressed that I was so easily sold on the idea that this girl is just a medium. The faceless men were great, but they were overused. And finally, it was beautiful. You know, it entertained you. That's what you want from a film. It was gorgeous to look at. Costume design, production design, cinematography, and obviously the sound design and the score. it was all there. It was a great ode to Soho, and obviously I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. So thank you for humouring me and listening to my little review. I have to go to bed now because I can see the sun coming up, but stay spooky and I will see you next time.